Conoce, educa. Aprender para actuar. Entre profes. Somos Educa Te Escucha.
Welcome, Louise. Thank you for being here with us in Educa Te Escucha. The first question is, what mistakes do educators make when teaching maths to their students?
Okay, well, I'm not going to say they make mistakes, but they may not consider everything that perhaps they ought to consider whilst planning the lessons. I'm going to talk from the point of view of very young children, because that is my main experience. And the main mistake that I see, or not the main consideration, is that they don't really understand how arbitrary and abstract numbers are.
Yeah.
So they try to teach mathematics by starting with the symbol. So if they're teaching 3 add 4, for example, they may start from the numeral 3, the addition sign, and then the 4. Whereas it makes much more sense if you think about the connections model to actually start from the point of view of a concrete apparatus. So it doesn't have to be specialist equipment, it doesn't have to be Numicon or spot on with numbers or any specialist equipment, but something that the children can manipulate.
Yeah, because these maths are in the real life, right?
Yeah. So and also the actual physically moving things around also helps them to develop the concept. But you're right, it's also linking it to the real life. And then from there, they can then move on to more pictorial representations, making sure they link it to the language that's being used. So really focusing in on the language of addition and the language of the number names, before then developing the use of the symbols. The symbols are the end point, they are not the beginning. And so, like I said before, if you only focus on symbols, mathematics is too abstract, it's too arbitrary, and you will not take all the children in your class with you. You really need to give them more than that, make sure that they've got concrete apparatus, pictures, language and symbols all working together. That would be my main issue in terms of mathematics. The other thing I would just like to say is that teachers in the UK, and I think maybe probably here in Peru too, are too focused on getting through the curriculum because they think they've got to get to the end of the curriculum by a certain point of the year, or got to finish all these lessons by Friday. And so they are teaching the curriculum, whereas I say stop teaching the curriculum and start teaching the children. and it's no point saying to your principal or your head teacher, I've got to the end of the curriculum if none of the children have learnt or understood anything. So my other big advice would be to use diagnostic assessment, assess where the children are at and take them forward in small steps. And obviously you've got some pressure to keep up with the curriculum, but the children are more important than the curriculum. That's my other big thing.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that this, what we are talking about also have a really strong connection with the second question. So our second question for you is, what should teachers do to make students feel motivated to learn math and not to be intimidated by it?
Okay. So the very most important thing is that the teacher is enthusiastic about the subject of mathematics.
Yeah, start with that.
So if the teacher comes into the classroom and says, today we have mathematics, I'm going to have to teach you about fractions, then obviously that's not going to motivate the children. But if the teacher comes into the classroom and said, today is mathematics and we're going to find out about this, and it's, and they're excited, that's already starting to motivate children. So that's the key thing, is the teacher's attitude. And then the second thing is the teacher's belief. The teacher has to believe that every child in that classroom can learn mathematics. Obviously, some are going to be learning it quicker than others, but if they only think that it's back to the closed mindset, isn't it? And with Carol Dweck, if they only think that certain students are going to succeed, then they end up focusing on those students and the others are left behind.
Exactly.
And that is not motivating
and
for
how
them.
would you be motivated if the teacher doesn't believe in you?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing as well about those more able students is that they also need to be challenged. Because this happened with my own son. He sailed through primary school without any challenge in mathematics.
Wow.
He was never really challenged. He could do it all. And then when he got to high school and it became a little bit more difficult, he was like, whoa. And he didn't know how to cope with that. And so all children need to be challenged and supported. That's the key thing. It's not, sometimes teachers think they have to challenge the more able, support the less able or not able, but the children in the classroom are struggling a bit. But actually, they all need support and they all need challenge. They all need to be using manipulatives. That's also going to help them to stay focused and stay motivated. But also, I think linking mathematics into what's happening in the real world, so that the mathematics is not just something the children see as things that happen in classrooms, but actually that they're motivated to see what mathematics is in the real world, what they've done that day that's involved mathematics, from being woken up by an alarm clock to timing the cooking of their egg for breakfast to getting on the right bus to get to school. All of this involves mathematics, and children need to see that mathematics is relevant to real life and to everyone, for everybody. So that is another key motivator. There's one final thing. I just think also that feedback for children is important, so that when they have done some work, that you don't always just say, oh, well done to you, and oh, you need to go and look at that again to you, that you are being more specific with your feedback. So when something has happened, when they've done a piece of work, if a child has got it all right, I like to say, oh, are you sure that all this is correct? And they go, well, where's my error? I said, I didn't say you made an error. I just said, are you sure? So that they start to do some self-correction.
But they used to assume that it's a mistake, right?
Yeah, it always is. If you say, well done, every time they get it right, and you say, go look at your mistakes every time they get something wrong, they're not self-evaluating. Whereas if you say, oh, are you sure you've got that right? When they have, it makes them go back and check. And also sometimes I'll say to a child who's got it incorrect, I say, oh, how did you do that? I don't say it's wrong. I'll say, how did you do that? That's really fascinating. Let's have a look at what you did, and let's see if we can work together to see what, whatever. So I think that the way that you feedback to children as well, particularly maths lessons, is important. That we don't just always say, do you think it's an ad? Do you think it's a takeaway? You say, what do you know? What do you know already? What do you need to find out? How can you get from there to there? So bringing in the reasoning again. So I think that's also important.
Thank you. And well, we want to ask for advice. So our last question is, what advice would you give to future educators to face the challenges of this century?
That's a very wide question.
It's a very wide question.
So they're talking really about students then who are coming into their first career, their first job. This is probably going to surprise you, but I would probably say, think about work-life balance.
Wow.
Because as a new career teacher, you will probably throw yourself into the job. You'll be planning. You'll be marking, you'll be creating resources, and you'll be so full on, and you'll be going to meetings, and it can be very overpowering. And in the UK, we have quite a lot of dropout of teachers after just 1 or 2 years. They find it's very challenging. They can't cope with the stress, and they move and they drop out and go on to other. So we've got to think about how to keep those teachers in teaching. And one of the things is work-life balance, that you don't make your whole life about teaching, that you do other things. You play musical instruments. Exactly. You need to socialise with your friends. You need to still do all of those things, and not. Obviously, you'll be working hard, and we want teachers who are hardworking. We want teachers who are committed to children. We want teachers who plan fabulous lessons, but you've also got to think about yourself as a whole person, and hold on to some of those things that you enjoy doing and make sure you keep doing those, because otherwise you'll burn out after maybe 1 or 2 years. So my main advice to a new teacher would be think about your work-life balance. And then the second advice is try to think about the experience that the child is having in your classroom, and that covers a wide range of things. But if you're planning exciting lessons and they're engaging, and you're thinking about how children learn, and you're supporting them to develop their understanding of themselves as a learner, the metacognition aspects that I spoke about today, then they will have a good experience, and then so will you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y esto fue Edúcate Escucha. Si deseas seguir al tanto de nuestras próximas entrevistas, no dudes en suscribirte, activar la campanita de notificaciones y visitar nuestra cuenta de Instagram, donde encontrarás más contenido de Edúcate Escucha.